All right. Welcome. It is Tuesday. Here we are, Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire, and we're going to go right to this interview I had with the legendary Seahawks quarterback, Jim Zorn. So we're going to go right to that because we're on a time constraint, and then we'll come back. So here is my interview exclusive with Jim Zorn. All right. It is such an honor to have the legendary Jim Zorn join the show and to have a conversation. And I will just say this. They say that you never forget your first. So Seattle Seahawks fans will never forget the first quarterback. Jim, thank you so much for coming on. And how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah. Thanks for having me on and let me be a part of your program.
Appreciate that. But let's just start from college, Pomona, and then what was that like? Because if I look here, Frank Zamboni, you drove. Can you just take us at that?
Okay. Yeah. So when I was in high school, I'll even go back a little further. When I was in high school, one of my teammates in football and I got together and we said, you know what? Let's learn how to ice skate. And we bought hockey skates and we went ice skating at just an ice skating rink every week, and we learned how to skate on hockey skates. Well, we didn't play hockey, but after that, he kind of went his way, and I went my way, and I started working at an ice skating rink, and it was owned by Frank Zamboni, and so they had all the Zamboni machines being tested there, and there was I mean, every year there'd be something new and developed, and they did a lot of R&D. Well, I worked at the ice skating rink, so I made ice for sessions. I made ice for private ice when dancers or pairs or singles would come in really early in the morning and rent the ice. I made sure the ice was right. So yeah, so that's how I got involved with ice skating, and I never played hockey, but I at the ice skating rink, it was called Iceland. It's in Paramount, California,
Mm.
and I did indoor. They had an indoor speed skating team called Demora, and I started to speed skate, and I won some, but I was in the second tier. I was not in the senior A men. I was in the senior B men, and fortunately, because I would never have competed, but it was indoor, short track indoor speed skating, and we had a pretty good team, but you could kind of compete it as an individual, um, and I did that all through. Actually, I did that all through my college experience as well. All 4 years of my college, I worked at that ice skating rink.
And I mean, now, it's rare. It was common in your day to have athletes multiple sports. In fact, the coaches are trying to get people to do that. Pete Carroll was one that always talks about that. So, badminton, you talked about speed skating,
I was on
javelin.
yeah, I was on so I loved football and I was a football player, but I used a lot of these other sports. I competed really hard in them, what I was realizing when I was competing is that these sports can help me in the sport that I was going to try to continue on all through college, and that was football. So speed skating, it really helped me with with explosion, and it was indoor, so there was the attention to sudden change and strategy and stuff like that. Even in speed skating was amazing, and I did a lot of extra work to become as good as I could as a speed skater. And then when I was at Cal Poly Pomona,
Mhm.
uh, they had a badminton team. And I thought, if I can learn how to really be competitive in badminton, my footwork, you had to be sudden and you had to be exact badminton is just a really competitive sport, and it's so reactionary to even see what's going on and to, just the little touches you have to have, and then the strength you have to have and the movement you have to have. So that also helped me at the quarterback position when I was in the pocket and being more sudden, how to be efficient and things like that. I threw the javelin in track at Cal Poly because the track coach needed a javelin thrower. He didn't have one, and he thought I could, I was a quarterback, so I threw. And so I said, I can't practice with your team because I'm also on the badminton team, and I'm also on the football team. I'm working out for football. So I'll throw the javelin, but you have to teach me at off times. And so he did that, and so I competed in meets and a few of the practices. But I threw the javelin. I threw the javelin in track as well.
You left two other ones, right? I mean, the frisbee, I can see where that
Oh, well,
helps, but
that's just from being in California. Everybody threw the frisbee around. Now we didn't have ultimate frisbee like they do today.
right.
They didn't have disc golf. That was kind of a new thing. So yeah, we just threw the frisbee around. What was the other one?
Surfing.
Yeah, I surfed up and down California. That was a sport that I really wanted to develop more. Uh, that was a weekend sport. I would like to have done that consistently every day, and I wasn't able to. But yeah, I surfed. Our my mom went to the beach a lot, and I did a lot of belly boarding and body surfing, and so then I got into surfing when I got into high school and stuff like that.
Natural if you're in California. So all those teams kind of set you up to be this dual threat quarterback. I mean, we see it now, I mean, Jalen Hurts, I mean,
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, pick one. But you were, I assert that you were probably the first dual threat quarterback that had the designed play, sprint draw. I think, could you talk a little bit about that and what is sprint draw for our audience?
Well, the innovation was developed by Howard Mudd, and he was our O-line coach uh, when I came to the Seahawks. And I think Jack Patera, Jerry Rome, they all got together and they said, "Well, okay, who do we have here? What can we do?" And really the sprint draw series is a lot like the zone series today,
Mm.
where you're reaching and you're either doubling a defender and then coming off on a linebacker. But what we did, I had Sherman Smith behind me, and we had a fullback, uh, several fullbacks that could also be lead blockers or go the other way. And what we did, the sprint draw series was Sherman 7 yards deep. He would go laterally, so he was still at 7 yards, and then he would make a left or right hand turn and come straight up just between, say, the tackle and the tight end. And at that time, our line would, the way it was designed, would take their man or their area. And if once they contacted their guy, they would just sort of take him where he was going, right? And then Sherman, he would come, I would sprint at about a 45-degree angle and intersect him right when he was making that cut up. And I would either hand him the ball and act like I kept it, or I would act like I handed him the ball and keep it. And I could sprint out. And then as I sprinted out and got to the outside, then you had Largent, Sam McCullum, our tight end Ron Howard, and they would be able to run sort of deeper routes. I mean, Steve ran 23-yard routes. Who runs 23-yard routes today? That you run 23 yards and then you come back or you come inside, outside, and but because of the fake and because I had from when I faked until I got to the sideline to make a decision, he could run deeper routes and come back, and we made some hay out of the sprint draw series. Then the fake sprint draw, and you sprint out. And also, we had play action off of that too, where I would fake the sprint draw and then set up behind the tackle tight end box and then throw the backside comeback to Sam McCullum or whoever, Steve Rabel. We had all kinds of stuff. And then I could drop back. Uh, but from underneath the center, we did a lot of stuff where I could drop and scramble, where I could fake strong side or weak side sprint draws, keep it or set up. Yeah, it was a great series. It really was.
And just as a quarterback, right? Because I mean, part of that is people you're pulling the strings. And how fun was that for you to be able to kind of, play chess master, if you will? Uh,
We had a lot of confidence in the fact that it was going to be very difficult for a team to defend us because we just didn't, we weren't sitting in the pocket every single play. We could drop back. We sat in the pocket. I sat in the pocket, but I could sprint out. I could run play action. I could run fake a play one way and naked away and throw the ball. And probably the thing that might would surprise a lot of people in that time was I could throw going to my right on a full sprint, and I could throw going to my left on a full sprint and complete passes. And I would tell Jerry, listen, don't major on going to my left because I'm left-handed, and don't neglect me going to my right because I'm left-handed. I want you call what you want to call into the boundary, to the wide side of the field, however you want to call it, and I will make myself do it. I will, if I don't do it right early, I'm going to work after practice or before practice and try to get that down. Those are the kinds of mental things that I tried to get into my mind so that the coach would not have to major in my, arm side, if you will.
I have 1982. You had one reception for 20. Do you remember that? I looked at all the records.
Well,
And
we during my time, and you can go back and look at this as well. We ran a lot of fake field goals because I
oh
was
yeah,
the
oh yeah, we're gonna go. Yeah, we're
okay?
gonna get to that. Yeah.
So that might have been a fake field goal that was thrown to me. But, Jack Patera was pretty innovative as a head coach, and he dedicated himself in designing fake field goals every single week. And what we have a whole reel of fake field goals throughout the years. And I remember being, holding for the kicker and having everybody on the opposing team saying, watch the fake, watch the fake. And then we'd fake it. We'd fake, it didn't matter. Uh, but there was a unique fake for each game. And some
Mm.
of those, we never carried them over. It was always designed for that team we were facing. Whatever they were going to do, Jack always had this, he studied it, and we had a fake designed especially for a particular team. If we didn't use it, then I mean, it might have been stored somewhere in his brain, but the next team wasn't going to do the same thing, so we would have a different fake, and he called them because really we needed to. We didn't have such a veteran team or a dominant team. So there were times that we had to keep the ball, and that was one way uh, kind of instead of punting or instead of kicking the field goal, trying to get us another four downs so we could go try to score.
But it just made for exciting, this new franchise expansion. You were always exciting the fans in the Kingdom.
Yeah,
Along with the opponent, obviously, but
yeah. Well, it was fun, and you would think that even on our first year, we didn't win many games. I think we were 2-12.
yeah.
We only played 14 games. We had six preseason games, but you thought we were close to getting to the playoffs because the fans just were so they were thrilled to have their own team now, and we knew we had a lot of things to develop, but they had, the fans at that particular time had grace as well and knew that we had a lot. So what were we going to bring to the field? And I thought we brought a pretty good brand of football, and there was a lot of unpredictability, and we had some early success as we went along.
Yeah, and it's always hard, but you finish with Seattle, and then you go to, make sure I got this right. You go to Green Bay for a
1 year. Hmm.
yeah, and then Tampa Bay. And what was that like? And then you got into coaching.
Yeah, well, going to Green Bay, I've always been associated with the Seahawks, so it was hard to go to another team, and yet that was 1985, if you can believe it, and that was the year that the Chicago Bears, who was a rival of the Green Bay Packers, I got to play across from Mike Singletary. I still know Steve McMichael was over there, and I knew these guys were. Refrigerator Perry was on the other side, and you know, there were great. That was a really good football team, and um, they had a particular style of defense that they could play man coverage, and they did uh, because because of the talent that they had on that side, and I mean we had a chance to move the ball as well. We we lost both of those games. They went, and the history is they went to the Super Bowl and deserved it, and they were a good football team. But yeah, I played for them for 1 year, and that was Forrest Gregg was the head coach.
Oh, yeah.
We did not have a whole lot of success. There were issues. Um, there was a couple more coaches beyond those years after I was long gone. Mike Holmgren came in
Hmm.
and really righted the ship, and the organization righted their ship. I mean, it was a storied organization. And then, Brett Favre came in, and the history there. Um, they've had a lot of success, and I think perennial, playoffs team, but playoff teams. But when I was there, yeah, we had some struggles. It was fun, and then I had a chance um, the 2 years later to play in Tampa during the strike. I went there on a Wednesday. I started the game on a Sunday. I threw a couple touchdowns, and even threw a couple that were dropped, but got the game ball. Hey, you're fantastic. And on Monday, the NFL strike, because it was during the strike,
Oh,
far away from here as I could. So I got there on a Wednesday, started, played on Sunday, got cut on Monday, and I never could get on another football team because after the strike was over, everybody kept their guys, and in fact, that was one of the years that the Washington Redskins won the
that's right.
Super Bowl with Joe Gibbs as the head coach. And then, so I retired from playing, and I got my first coaching job in at Boise State
Yes.
with Skip Hall, who actually
All right.
coached with Don James here at the UW.
Yeah, I mean that whole, you went Boise State, Utah State, Minnesota,
Yep.
offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, came back to the Seahawks, Detroit Lions, and then the Seahawks.
Yep.
Just all that, it seems like the common theme is about teaching. What was that? Obviously, that's something that you love to do, to the knowledge. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that, you being a teacher and why that was
Yeah.
important to
I
you?
think when I played, Jerry Rome was very influential in my life as a coach. And he was one of the first coaches that really taught me detail about the game. And he really taught me about being efficient on the field, not wasting motion. Because when you lift your foot and you step a certain way and you weren't supposed to step that way, but you have to count it as time. Time is a real factor in the game. And when you're making a decision on a three-step drop from underneath the center, you have to drop, you have to decide, you have to let the ball go. It's got to be accurate in 1.7 seconds. And that's about the average time that a three-step drop has. And the five-step drop is a little bit more, and the seven-step drop is a little bit more than that. And so he taught me a lot of little details on, efficiency, not bouncing up and down, because I might have had to throw the ball when I was up, but you need to be compressed when you throw it. So there's so many little things like that in being efficient. I can see it, I can feel it, and that's what I brought to my coaching. And I really do think that having teachers out there being able to teach the details of positions, details of groups, and how everything fits together without wasting any motion, and understanding what the position of another guy is going to be in really can make a difference with things that make, a fan would look at and you wonder, why is it so easy? Why does it look so simple? And when you watch some of these throws, the ball's not just arriving, in a vicinity. It's arriving right there, right on. Oh, and this one's arriving right there or right there. And the quarterback has worked at making his brain and his arm all fit together, and it's the response, and you've practiced it, right? I don't know if it's muscle memory, because each throw is different. It might even come out, you've seen, they've made a large video, I'm sure, of clips of Patrick Mahomes and arm releases and stuff like that. He's very clever, but you practice those, and you do it in such a way where it makes the game fun. It makes it, you respond to each situation. So I guess you practice the thing. If everything happens right, you can practice the right motion, the right throw. But in football, which makes it, a very intricate game, it's a very interesting game. The perfect doesn't happen. Most of the time, it doesn't happen. There's little movements, there's little ticks and things like that you have to do. Now, if you're in the right position, you can be sudden and make that. Or if you're in the wrong position, you're probably going to get hit. And so that's my job, is to teach the quarterbacks how to be efficient and respond well when adversity happens, right?
And there's something and let me know if I get this wrong, but you talked about the execution, going to the mental side of the quarterback, the execution of each play in of itself. And I think you said for a quarterback, you have to live in the present, learn from the past, so that way when the future becomes the present, you're ready.
Yeah. And so what my job is to make sure that the quarterback hasn't experienced what he's going to experience on the field. He hasn't experienced it for the very first time. So there's a big package of throws. There's not a few throws. There's a big package of throws. And I can give you an example. Let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a screen called. A screen is a drop that the quarterback wants to make the defense think this is just a normal drop back pass. The linemen, they want the D line to think they've whiffed, that they didn't use the right technique to block their guy. And so they slow him down a little bit, but they let him through. And then they go and kind of go down the line of scrimmage and block for the back who's going to catch the ball. Well, the back, he's going to act like he's blocking, and then he's going to turn, and then the quarterback acts like he's dropping back, and you give this trout look like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble, and then you throw this screen, and then the linemen lead up the field. So everything you practice, you could practice that technique every single time. But what happens is sometimes a guy will whiff, and the quarterback
Mm.
can't drop back and pause and make it look like he's dropping back in the pocket. What he has to do is almost accelerate from the snap of the ball. And he can't stop because that guy's right on him. Well, the back doesn't know it. Only he knows it. And so the back is just going to run his normal screen. So I have to carry the ball a couple extra steps because I didn't hesitate. And I got to stay away from the D lineman who wants to nail me. And then I've got to get my eyes on the back and throw a pass as though it was a normal screen. And then the other scenario is everything's working out right, except when I look out to the back's covered. Now, what do I do with the ball? Because
That.
now they have let themselves through. I have retreated, and now I still have to make a decision. So that's one of my war cries uh, in teaching is look before you throw, because I've experienced the idea where I thought everything was right, and I've actually think about what I'm going to say here. I've actually thrown while I'm looking. Right?
Right.
I'm going to be so slick about this. I'm going to throw while I'm looking. And I've done that and thrown it to a defensive lineman for a pick six,
Oh,
right? Because he was in between the back. And once you get that motion going, it's hard to pull that ball back. And, I've screwed that up. But I've learned through that experience to teach, make sure you look before you throw, right? And so I have to train that into the QB as well. And then I have to train a QB on how to throw the ball away. Do you just throw it up if he's covered, or do you throw it at his feet? And how do you throw that screen? That's one play, and there's probably 70 others or 80 others that you would say, okay, this is this, and we're going to start working. Here's how it is perfectly. But like I said, rarely do things happen in that perfect execution in a game. So what makes it exciting? The decision making, what's going on in that QB that he can execute under that kind of duress.
and that's all happening in milliseconds. Everything you
Yeah,
described.
that's right. That's right.
So,
You got to control it. And that's why
yeah.
practice is super important. The experience, uh, in most football, especially in the NFL, you have meetings to learn the concepts of the play, what the coach is looking for, what you're expecting the defense to do, and the defense doesn't always do what you expect it to do, and so you still have to make the best decision you can make based on even something else happening, right? And then you go out at practice and you execute it, and you might execute it again the following day or even in that same team period versus a different coverage, and then you watch that on video uh, after practice so you can kind of get it. Okay, this is what happened, here's what you did, here's what we could do better or whatever. And then you might come back and you study it on your own by watching the opponent, and say, okay, let's say I had this play called, what would I do here? And then uh, you might rehearse it a few more times, but eventually you have to actually do it in a game. And you've done so much of that preparation. When you see it and you have it during a game, now, they're gonna bring extra defenders over
Mhm.
here. And so now I have to change the protection first before I can get the play run. And then you have to remember, oh, I've changed the protection, but I still have the play on. You have to remember the play, even though you've changed the protection. So there's a lot going on in your decision making as a QB, and um, it's super fun. It's a thrill, And what's really a thrill as a coach is to see your players or your side of the ball, and then the guys you're coaching execute with technique and the fundamentals that you've been teaching, because you know that if they do, that gives them the best opportunity for success. And then to see it happen for it to be successful, man, I mean, I feel like I'm playing the game with them as the game goes along.
Yeah, I've seen you at Seahawks doing the practice and training camp, and yeah, and it still seems like you're still involved. We got about 5 minutes here. I wanted just to talk a little bit off field as well. You're a man of faith, and 28 is it 2018? You were ambassador to the Special Olympics, and what was that like? And is
Oh,
there anything else you're doing for the community? I know they're raised, but I just wanted you to go ahead.
well, being involved, I was involved with Special Olympics. That was a national event.
Yeah,
And I would say Ray Roberts was even a bigger character, a bigger voice in Special Olympics in this area uh, after that experience. But I did what I could to help. There were several other Seahawks and other sports, other athletes, not just me. We had the best time because the young people who are competing, you talk about uh, being serious about your events. Those Special Olympic athletes, uh, they are in their hearts, they are so joy filled that they have the opportunity to express what they're doing on a field, on a court, in a even in a team event or in an individual event. There's nothing like it to watch the joy that comes out, and then to look around and see the parents and the pride the parents have in their own kids competing, and the officials. There's a lot of volunteerism through Special Olympics, but many other organizations as well in many other experiences. So, yeah, I just counted it a privilege to be able to do that at that particular time in 2018. I think throughout my career, both as a player and a coach, uh, it really takes the right people in the organization to understand what how we can be an effective group of groups and individuals. And Gary Wright, Sandy Gregory,
oh yeah,
longtime Seahawk uh, uh, people who worked in the organization for so many years, they just did a wonderful job of getting us opportunities in the right places. And now Mike Flood, Mario Bailey,
hmm
uh, all those Deja uh, Stallings,
yeah, yeah.
these people now have kind of taken on that mantle, and they're doing this. They're doing similar things. I tip my hat to the Hawks, to the Kraken, other organizations, the Mariners, sending being able to be mindful of privilege that we have to play that game that we've played for so long and coached it for so long. But I tip my hat to them because they look out in the community and they say, how can we have an impact in the community? And they do a really good job of it.
All right, he is Steve Largent. Steve Largent. He is Jim Zorn. He is a partner of Steve Largent. We
Yeah,
didn't get to
I
talk.
still am friends with
Oops.
Steve.
Yeah, why don't we get to talk about
People,
Steve Largent or Steve
yeah,
Rabel? Staying with
yeah,
the Steves. Maybe give us an opportunity to invite you back sometime in the future.
right
But
on.
it's just been fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Jim Zorn. Appreciate you having you on.
You were super interesting, even asking the questions, because you did some homework that creates an unusual conversation. So I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me.
All right, so there you go. Yeah, I'm gushing, 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 but right now I ain't got time to gush. We have to go to the break, and then we'll come back and talk about what we heard. And there we go. Yeah, Steve Largent. Ay, ay, ay. All right, Seattle Sports Weekly. Let me get my names correct, and let's get to the break.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio. .world.
This is a Rainier Avenue radio message on fentanyl awareness in our community.
Talk about awareness, drug user awareness, to talk about how to use Narcan, to do that kind of education on the street for people, to make sure that they have it available. These folks are our neighbors, they're our community members, they're our families, folks who start out for any given reason, and there are countless different reasons why people end up living outside, but it's part of the community and the culture. If they didn't start out using substances, they end up using substances. If they've stayed outside for any length of time, they will end up with chronic medical conditions. Cost that it ends up creating for the community, for people to be in and out of the emergency room.
This has been a Rainier Avenue radio message on fentanyl in our communities.
This is Big Poppy, host of Jazz from the Cabinets. Join me each week for a listening tour of the first century of jazz, an eclectic mix of Dixieland, big band, cool jazz, bebop, contemporary jazz, world jazz, all jazz in all forms. That's Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy on Rainier Avenue Radio, streaming worldwide on RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Greetings. This is your host, DJ Neftali, RainierAvenueRadio.world, the best DJ in the Seattle area. You can catch me every Monday at 8 p.m. on YouTube. Like I said, this is DJ Neftali, the best reggae in Seattle, Washington, the best radio station, RainierAvenueRadio.world. Come on, right?
So my doctor told me to go online to check my test results, but I didn't know how to do that. Thankfully, I could turn to Link to Care WA for help. With Link to Care WA, I was able to learn how to use online health portals, use telehealth to talk to my doctor virtually, and manage my prescriptions online. I called the hotline and spoke to a real person who taught me the skills I needed. Call Link to Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not meeting Mrs. Jones in that cafe for a chat and nothing else, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Right, just like that, we are back. Yeah, wasn't that? Yeah, it's one of those. That was just an honor and a treat to be able to talk to the Seahawks legend, Jim Zorn, and just to hear him speak just normal, and given who he is and what he stands for. I think that's what's fun about being in this industry. Those kind of interviews, and you see people that are humble. And he's amazing. You heard that, and just to talk about the inner part of football, and that is the coaching aspect, and that part about the technique, and teaching your players technique, fundamental, and then execution, and that's what makes a coach happy. It's interesting because I've heard Mike McDonald talk about that hey, we're trying to get players in the right position for them to understand fundamentally, and again, so they can be the right position to execute. Because you hear everybody talk about, you got to get the players in the right position, but it's really a coach thing. It's the coaches that have to get the players in the right position to execute the play, and then on a consistent basis, so that then you get favorable results. And to hear that from Steve Largent's perspective, I thought was really insightful for me. And we are, I guess I can leak it out. We'll be talking with Mike McDonald next week. The media will. And so it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. And again, Clint Kubiak is scheduled to be with us on that interview. that is, I can't tell you exactly when, but the new Seahawks offensive coordinator. If you're saying, okay, so what's up with the Seahawks? The Pro Bowl just wrapped up. Jackson Smith and the Jigba was there, and Leonard Williams, and also Devon Witherspoon. And what the Pro Bowl has become now is really kind of a drills and skills show off. And then they have during the week, different things, throwing contests and running through the maze. And then there's a video game between the AFC, the NFC. Players are picked, and then they compete, and the winner gets points to at their respective conference. So all week, you've got this running tally of the AFC, NFC going, and then all the different events, they awarded points. And then, of course, the crescendo of it all is the flag football game. And minus menos for Jackson Smith and Jigba, because he had a 46-yard touchdown reception, longest, and then he threw a pick six. So, but again, it's an all-star game. It's all festivities. I would say just to kind of what's happening in Super Bowl week. And I admit it's the first time I haven't been at a Super Bowl in a while. And it's good I got to tell you, it's good just to be away. I know everybody thinks it's all that, but it's fun. There's a lot of work to be done, and it's nice to kind of take a look at it from this perspective. All right. I won't bore you with all the details. My point is the Super Bowl is coming up on Sunday. And then once that's done, I've got some important dates for you in terms of what happens next. And so after the Super Bowl, the NFL, I would say NFL Scouting Combine is February the 24th to March the 13th. And that's where you'll see, the coaches, the scouts, taking a look at the players as they go through all the drills and everything else. They get measured and whatnot, have you. And then I should back up. February the 18th is clubs can designate franchise or transition players. So take a look at February 18th. We'll be, I'm sure, somewhere in that week, we'll broadcast. And then kind of it should give us the Tuesday. There you go. It'll give you an idea of where the team is going in terms of what they do with the franchise tag. And then March the 4th, and that's where, again, they can designate franchise or transition players. That's the deadline for that. And then, March 4th, teams can then negotiate with said transition and designated players. And March the 10th to the 12th, that is when unrestricted free agent. It's on. That is on. That's when, the signing goes on. And then March 12th is the first day of the 2025 fiscal year. So, that'll kind of give you an idea. And then in terms of the Seahawks, unrestricted free agents, remember Farrell Brown, Trey Brown, Artie Burns, Stone Forsythe, Travis Gibson, Jonathan Hankins, Ernest Jones. That's one to watch there. Jaron Reed and Lincoln Tomlinson and Kayvon Wallace. So to me, the three names that really stand, Jaron Reed, for the four names that come out there. Kayvon Wallace had a pretty good season, started a couple games, but Lincoln Tomlinson started all the games, the tackle position, the guard position, if you will. Jaron Reed, will they keep him? And I think the biggest one is probably Ernest Jones. That's really the one, they brought him in. The Seahawks did. Amazing. He wants to stay, and they just have to negotiate with that. And he is the middle linebacker. He makes that defense run. So unrestricted free agent. I don't think there's a, Jalen Darden, I should say, and then Josh Job. So cornerback there, but interesting to see. Really want to keep an eye on the Ernest Jones thing because they need him. And then other things going on. The Storm, finally, the Jewel Lloyd trade was finalized, and while it's not official, but the Storm will be bringing back Nneka Ogwumike, and I think that was important. That's a piece of, as you rebuild, you recover, you move forward. You needed Nneka. Remember, she was second team WNBA all team last year, and she's president of the WNBA players, things like that. So she's returning. Skylar Diggins returns. The team has cord Gabby Williams, and then also Ezzy comes back. Sammy Whitcomb is gone, and also so is Joyner Holmes. They've all moved on. So Storm, moving on in terms of players in and out of there. And February 1st, that's why contracts are now being signed, were signed. The biggest day, the two dates I would say is to keep an eye on April 14th, WNBA draft. Remember the Sonics? I wish the Sonics were drafting, but the Storm will have the second pick that they acquired in a three-way deal between the LA Sparks, the Storm, and Las Vegas Aces. And then April 27th, training camp begins. And then May 16th, the regular season starts for the WNBA. So this is that time of the year where it's all starting to heat up. I got a smile on my face because I love it. Probably had a couple weeks here of just a respite, if you will, but it's on. It's on and cracking, as they say, just in terms of, some of these teams. And obviously the Mariners spring training is coming up just around the corner. Jared DePorter gave a long length synopsis just of where the Mariners yesterday, and I'll have more of that for you next week. But really, the only offseason trade move the Mariners made was bring back Jose Polanco. So, a lot of criticism against the Mariners that they should do more. And the Mariners are thinking, no, internally we have what we need. And that's where the issue, and man, I don't know. You just have to wait and see here in terms of the season. But I'll tell you, they are restless. The Mariner fan base is restless, and they wanted some change. Well, they got it midway. If you remember that Scott Service was let go, and Dan Meyer was brought in, and so really this is about, can the Mariners start out quick? Because if they don't, the fan base, they're not going to see a lot of people in the seats. I got to tell you, they are not going to see a lot of people in the seats because everybody is saying, hey, wait a minute, you needed to make some upgrades here, and you don't. Everything is okay. Well, I got to tell you, they're going to have to make some really, really they have to come up to a fast start here. And to do that, spring training is one thing, but that season, I'm just trying to tell you, they'll February 21st. It's less than 3 weeks away, and that's when the Mariners have their first training. That is when they have their first spring training game. So Mariners have to be on par. I mean, I can't tell you right now which way it's going to go, but as I said, you need a strong start, and to get some, a fan base that's not really doesn't believe you right now. Got to tell you, they just don't believe what they're seeing and what they're hearing from management. It happens with fan bases all the time, and now the Mariners to make sure that they are ready and that their plan will go accordingly. Because if they don't, my last talk on that is that it's going to be a very long season. But hey, Who am I to? We'll see. And then as far as the Seattle Sounders, we had a press conference with Brian Smetzer and Stefan Fry this morning. And if you where the Sounders at, they've played 2 games in their preseason Marble, Spain. Over there, that's where kind of like how the certain teams, the training camp, the preseason, they'll go to sunny weather. Well, the Sounders went. They like to go to Marble, Spain. They played 2 games there, and right now they've got 2 more left. But they'll be back next week. They'll be back in Seatown, if you will, Renton, and then so we'll be able to talk to the players a little bit more and give you some more exclusive content. But remember, the Sounders pick up 2 players, Jose Ferreira and also Paul Arriola. And really, the key here, the Sounders had the best defense in Major League Soccer last year. They allowed the least amount of goals. So great. But their issue was scoring. And you saw that part of the issue in terms of what happened with scoring. They were just not getting enough players inside the box. In soccer, when you're trying to attack, when you're going down there and you go from transition, right, you stop the other team, you get the ball to the midfield, and the idea is to quickly get down the pitch. And as you do that, not only do you've got your strong side. Let's say we're facing right, you've got midfielders there and the winger on the right, and you're moving that, and you've got a pivot in the back. What's real critical is that you need the weak side. That is the other side of your attack to make those runs, get downfield, and especially get in the box. So that way the person with the ball, whether it's, let's say, Albert Rusnik coming down or Pedro de la Vega, and he sees all those things there, that is the different options. Then he can either take on the defender, pass it to the right, pass it to the left. That was a missing last year in the Sounders attack. They were only one-dimensional. So when you do that, what happens when you're one-dimensional, what do teams do? Teams then are going to, they're going to scout you out. And Brian Smetzer said it this morning, and I should have pulled it up for you, but he said, yeah, towards the end of the season last year, as all teams do, they game plan you, and that happens in any sport. So what do you do to create diversity in your attack? You get more players in there, and you get players like Jose Ferreira, who can, not only is he quick, but he's also fast. He's probably quicker than he is faster. So Jordan Morris is fast, right? Fast is that DK. DK is fast, right? Jackson Smith-Njigba is quick, to give you kind of some comparisons there. So on the field in soccer, you get a player that can do both of those. It's really useful because then he can use his quickness, he uses speed to get downfield, use his quickness to shift in or out and receive that ball, and then make that move past the defender. And that's why having a player like Ferreira who's able to get downfield, get the ball, make a quick move, and look for Jordan Morris or Pedro de la Vega or Albert Rusnik or Paul Arriola creates diversity in your attack. And so that is why the Sounders, they've got a preseason game coming up here in a week, and I don't know if they'll allow us to see that sometimes the last preseason of the game, because they start February 19th. The Sounders play. They're off and running. They play in the CONCACAF Champions League, and they're in Guatemala on the 19th. And then the 22nd, 1921, the 22nd, they open up the MLS season. So it's coming up quick, and the Sounders continue to work in terms of the intricate play, the creativity, if you will, from midfield to forward. The thing the Sounders like to do, you know what? It's interesting without digressing. Most professional teams, sports, whatever, I mean, the transition is key. Everybody plays transition, right? Maybe I'll take out football, but basketball and soccer and everybody else. Yeah, thank you for putting that up there. I mean, it's about transition. It's about putting pressure, right? You put pressure on your opponent, you force an error, right? You pounce on the ball, you get downfield, and then you score. Transition. We saw that way back in the LA Lakers Showtime. We had that big trade, by the way. And but that's the key. Pressure. Sports is always about creating pressure. Now that I can say that in any sport, anywhere, at any level, whether it's tennis, whether it's football. What Mike McDonald is trying to do over there is pressure defense, right? Because the more turnovers, the more errors you can cause in your opponent, then you take advantage of that. Complementary football is what Mike McDonald says. Transition is what Brian Smith was talking about and says, and that's the key in the world game right now. And as soon as you get that, going back to soccer, as soon as you pressure that or you get that ball, what the Sounders like to do, that first pass they make should be 7 or 10 yards downfield. And as soon as you do that, right, you're off and running. And that's the transition part of it. But you just can't have, as I said earlier, the left side or the right side. You need both sides, and you need runners to create space. You heard Steve Largent talk a little bit about that. Steve Largent, I don't know why that man is on my mind, but you heard Zorn talk about spacing. When it all comes to sports, it's about spacing. And spacing is the key. Can you control the space? Can you dominate the space? Mike McDonald talks about chasing the edges, right? He's always talking about that. Can you control space? Can you play that defense and dominate that space, whether you're the linebacker or whether, especially the defensive lineman, setting the edge? And then on the flip side, if you're the offense, can you push as the offensive line? Going back to Steve Largent, the sprint draw, then the zone run. It's about spacing. Can you create enough diversion to where you can run outside of the tackles? You run between there, you're not going to get, you get some yards, but if you create the play action, that's part of it again, creating space. So that is, kind of like a Star Trek monologue there, space, the final frontier. But on a serious note, it is about space. And that's what the Sounders are really trying to do is create diversity and an attacking style by having players run into the open space and then having the ball handler able to see them, get them the ball, and hopefully with the short amount of time, again, it's a counterattack, you get a quality shot on goal. So that is really kind of, where the Sounders are up to. And same thing's going to happen with the Storm, right? Against space. I neglected to talk about the Huskies, but yesterday, Jed Fish, Jimmy Ritchie was named the Huskies' new offensive coordinator. So heard a little bit from him. And then Ryan Walters, the defensive coordinator. So go to CascadiaSports.net. Some stories up there, and then also go to the YouTube channel. And the time is up. So again, I want to say thank you to Seahawks legend Jim Zorn for joining the show earlier. Thank you all for watching and listening. We're still getting the bugs out between YouTube and all that stuff. But D-Money, thank you, man. Can't do the show without you. Thank you all for listening. And the Call to Conscience, Black History Month, is open Tuesday through Sunday this month. Tours every hour from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. until the 28th. Look, we need diversity. Stand for it. Be a voice for it. Thank you all.